Primetime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be starting off tonight with taking a look at today's COVID numbers. There are 18 new cases of COVID-19 in the province, with none in the immediate Lloydminster area, where we have 5 active cases. Saskatchewan has 363 active cases, including 14 in the northwest, where we have 1 new case. 54 people are in hospital, with 4 in our zone. More than 1.3 million doses have been administered province-wide, including over 80,000 in the northwest. We are well into construction season in Lloydminster as many projects are underway across the city. This week, City Council was updated on the progress of the city's 2021 infrastructure projects. Jace Mackey has more on how work is going.
Progress is being made on dozens of projects in Lloydminster, from water and sewer work along 50th Street to the water line extension at 67th Street and the Highway 16 road rehab. You don't have to look far to find construction work being done around the city.
Highway 16 is a really visible construction project, although there are many other projects going on in the city. So you end up getting people saying, what's going on here, what's going on there, right? And there are so many aspects and things you have to deal with to get that construction done properly that it may look like sometimes there's not a lot going on, but there are reasons for that.
City Council was updated this week by the engineering department on the city's capital infrastructure projects. The recent heat wave and dry weather means most projects are either on or ahead of schedule.
Overall, things are moving along, very, very good. I mean, we've had some great break with the weather and on the production side of that. So hopefully we'll be able to get these things wrapped up a little earlier than normal, and it'll be out of people's way.
Highway 16 is one of Lloydminster's busiest roads. With construction reducing traffic to 1 lane in each direction, travel time has increased, and so have frustrations.
There was a concern over construction worker safety and left turns and people working not just on the Highway 16 project. There was private work being done in the parking lots to the south side of Highway 16, and there were issues there. I know that our peace officers and RCMP were out looking at those issues on the weekend.
Motorists are asked to slow down, follow all posted signs and detours, and use 75th Avenue for left turns, as left turns are not allowed in the construction zone.
Bottom line is the safety of residents, the safety of bystanders, the safety of workers, and the safety of people traveling through shouldn't be taken for granted, and making those illegal turns during that stuff puts everybody at risk.
For Primetime Local News, I'm Jace Mackey.
This morning kicked off the start of an exciting week for Lloydminster residents, with the parade going through the city, and to the spectators, it turned out to be a big hit. Families came from far and wide to sit on the sidelines and watch the decorated vehicles drive past them. People were hopeful to see what the parade had all involved.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing that that they're starting to open things up, and this is a really great way for our city to do that and kind of get the community out.
The parade started around 10 a.m., a good time for residents to settle down and prepare for the show. Many known faces showed up in the parade, along with local companies and organizations to support the community. The parade was much bigger than most residents anticipated. Community support was very strong, and the event was successful in starting off the Lloyd X's week.
It was really good. I liked a lot of the things, but I really liked the fire trucks. They were loud and cool, and my dad's a firefighter.
Overall, families were impressed to see how much effort was put into the parade. This was a warm feeling for many residents, especially through COVID-19.
Well, I thought it was awesome. It's nice to have something real again after COVID. This was a wonderful production, and Lloydminster came through with all kinds of floats and groups, and you had the Shriners here from Saskatoon, you had the local Alwas right here from Lloyd, you had balloons, you had all kinds of businesses advertising. It was wonderful.
The Lloyd X Fair goes until Saturday, July 17th. Shelby Clark, Primetime Local News. The Lloydminster Rescue Squad have several fundraisers in place to help their operations and better the organization. Connor Chan has more.
Ryan LeBlanc from the Lloydminster Rescue Squad joins us here today. Ryan, there's a few fundraisers in place for you guys right now, including what seems to be a favorite here with the public. So talk about the upcoming event for you guys, which is the drive-in movie at the Lloyd Mall.
Yeah, you bet. So we're so excited to have it again and partnering with the Lloyd Mall. It's something that I know our members even look forward to every year, and being able to sit in the mall parking lot and watch a movie out of your car is just it's a lot of fun. So we're super excited, and we're so thankful for the mall for hosting this event for us, and they're the main organizers of it. So we're thankful for them for what they're doing for Lloyd Rescue.
And in terms of with the services you guys provide here in the community, how would you say the need for your guys' services are this year compared to other years?
It's been a hot summer this year already, and lots of people, are at the lakes and rivers once again, and we're constantly being called for these rural calls and the recreational calls. So we're busier than we used to be in regards to the recreational calls and the water side of things.
On top of the drive-in, we know you're also going to be a part of the Lloydminster community 50-50. What are your guys' plans with the rescue squad with the shares that you guys are going to receive?
It's something that'll just propel us operationally, and it's something we need just to keep our equipment going on the road. Insurance nowadays isn't cheap. Fuel is not cheap. All these things that we have to pay for, it starts to add up. And when a family phones you to come help, outside of some cost recovery, it's hard to really get any cash flow that way. So we really rely on these donations to keep us going and to be able to help other families.
And one thing too with the rescue squad, it's always about new equipment and wanting to raise funds for that to help you guys do your job properly. So is there anything you guys are looking to, get really soon here?
Yeah, so actually we are picking up our new boat this Friday. So we'll have that in Lloydminster on Friday. We're so excited to get that back to town here. We have purchased the new ROV and some more dive equipment. So we're still 50,000 short on our Water Wish project. So we are still raising money for that. We've raised just over $115,000 to date since last November with that. But we're excited that we have the equipment accessible to our community now that will be fully available starting this Friday once we get the boat here in Lloydminster.
And one of the last things here, Ryan, just a reminder for how people get tickets for the drive-in. I guess how many people are you hoping to get this for this event?
Yeah, I think they're expecting over 300 cars. It's going to be good. I know one thing to mention is they're having a private drive-in event the night before, so don't get confused with the two. Ours is going to be on the 29th of July, and I think it's just going to be paying first come first serve at the gate there. So we're excited, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, Ryan, I really appreciate your time as always. Thank you very much for joining us, and hope the community comes out and supports the rescue squad as they always do. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for news. Sports is next, but first, here's a look at your closing market.
Today's oil prices are brought to you by First General Services.
The North American Chuckwagon Championship doesn't only feature 36 drivers racing for $100,000 in prize money, it is also paying homage to past drivers. Our Evan Kenny has more.
Growing up with a CPCA legend can have its upsides. Just ask Jamie Labacane or Dale Mitswing.
I was racing against him last time he raced in Calgary. I raced against him the last time he ran a race, and he beat me both times. But
Sunday night at the North American Chuckwagon Championship, these fathers, Brian Labacane and Ray Mitzwing, hopped in a wagon with their sons and were honored with a heritage heat.
Oh yeah, it was nice to see, especially from this perspective of the old outriders. There's guys that rode for Dad back in, I don't know, the early '80s, and they were here. They were reunited, so it was an old reunition of all the outriders. So it was kind of cool.
You know, it was still a lot of fun to get in there, and you know, he was excited, and oh man, everybody had a blast. You know, there was grins from ear to ear from Dad, Ray, all the old outriders, and we had a lot of fun.
The horn sounds.
The heat was just for fun and nostalgia, but the Suns could sense more from the 6- and 7-time CPCA champs.
I think the next go around he's going to go with a big, stronger outfit just to get that final win. So.
Quarter and come down the home stretch drive.
Now the father's time is over, and it's time to see if Jamie and Dale have picked up a few pointers over the years.
A lot of it's mentally, like preparing yourself, visualizing your race before the race actually happens, because once you get out there, you only have a split second to kind of think over things, and when it happens, you gotta think like that. So
He always told me if it was easy, everybody'd do it, and you know that's true to this sport, because just when you think you're starting to get things figured out, you get, you know, humbled back down to earth pretty quick. So
the CPCA royalty will race in another heritage heat on Championship Monday, while their boys will be back on the track tonight.
The Lloydminster Exhibition's agricultural event started bright and early this morning with an equestrian event. Jillian Code has more.
The 2021 Lloydminster Exhibition Fair kicked off early Wednesday morning with a light horse show. A small crowd was on hand to cheer for the horses and their riders. A variety of classes competed in Wednesday morning's dressage event, a competition which tests both the horse and rider's ability to follow a series of commands around a marked ring.
KXM, change rein.
Riders compete one by one and are not allowed to verbally communicate with their horse while in the ring. Judges score each command based on how well the rider and horse work together. There was a lot of energy in and around the ring this morning. I spoke with a rider who told me that she's very excited to be back competing. She said the past year off wasn't just difficult for her, but for her horse as well, as horses really only have a couple years of peak showing conditions. She said everyone's just excited to be back. Those who missed Wednesday morning's light horse show will have another opportunity to take in the event, as 2 more light horse shows are scheduled for Thursday and Friday, both at 8:30 a.m. Jillian Code, Primetime Local News.
I'm joined here now with author Stephanie Levine. Could you just give some background into yourself for people who may not know you?
Well, I live in South Florida and I'm a fiction writer. Most people know me either from my mystery books, which I write under my own name, or I have a pen name that I write romance under.
And what really got you into writing?
I think similar to many professional writers, I was always a writer in some capacity. You know, I always, from the time I was young, in high school and college, I always wrote. I didn't necessarily know I would go on to write fiction books. I mean, I devoured fiction, but I didn't necessarily know if I would write for magazines or television shows or what. But then I ended up going on to have 2 completely different careers that had nothing to do with writing, really. Sometimes I would write a magazine article to go along with my photography when I was a photographer. But I always knew I wanted to be a writer, and slowly I started realizing that was going to be writing books. But it took me a couple false starts until I finally said, okay, just sit down and do this and start becoming an author. And here I am.
And what draws you to the mystery and romance genres?
Mystery, I've always been a mystery-minded person. I think, you know, if a siren goes by, I'm like, what's happening? I'm not like outwardly nosy, but inside I'm like, what's happening? You know, something, trying to read a situation. I like puzzles and crosswords. And my mom was always a mystery reader. And I didn't realize that I also liked mysteries until I started realizing that I would listen to them, because I do a lot of audiobooks and I always have. And I would just sort of find a series and just binge listen to them while I was working, while I was doing a project, while I was editing. And I was like, oh, I really like mystery books. And that was a long time ago. But I think when I sat down to finally write a novel, I have certain authors that I really like, and I thought, well, it'd be awesome to write something like them, which is more in the mystery genre. So I did. And with romance, I had actually never really read much romance. Definitely hadn't written much romance or any. A little bit for one job I had once, but my mother-in-law was always reading romance books, and so when I first started out, I said, I'm going to write something for her. You know, she was always around. She was living here at the time, and said, okay, well, it's great. You can tell me what you think, or how do you feel about this plot? And so it was really fun, just sort of writing to an exact audience at first.
And with your newest book, Headlines, Deadlines, and Lies, it was released in June. So where did the inspiration for that book come from?
That one was a little bit of a departure from, I'd say, my upcoming mysteries to some degree. They're always kind of lighthearted and quirky and kind of funny. But this one was like mystery-like because it doesn't start with a murder or a big event. Like, there was a lot going on in the world, and it just felt very heavy and intense. And when I sat down to write this, I wanted to see if I could write a story that didn't have to start with something like that, which is a little bit of a challenge because you have your built-in sort of inciting incident in a lot of mysteries, like you stumble on the scene of a murder or something. And so I was like, well, I don't want to do that. And that was sort of the prompt, the challenge. And then it was really fun because I got to work in, like, my mom's really big into genealogy, and I've wanted to pay attention for a long time, but I just haven't had time. And so that got pulled in because there's a lot of crazy genealogy stories. You don't realize it. Now I do, but there's just all these sort of missing links in people's backgrounds and family histories and trees. And you're like, wait a second. That doesn't make sense when you delve into it. And people are like, oh no, don't, like, let's not ask about that. Like, let's not ask about that little missing thing. And so there actually is a lot of mystery in family trees and things like that. So that was sort of the catalyst and how it got going.
What keeps you inspired as an author?
I think just life is so interesting. I mean, where I live in particular, but you can get the news from anywhere. You could always just look and you're like, oh my gosh, people are so strange. People do the weirdest things. People are interesting. Life is interesting. There's just so much to pull from, or to be inspired by, or to be excited by, or to be interested in. I live in a place where we have, it's one of the biggest cruise ship ports. Don't check that statistic, but I believe it's one of the biggest cruise ship ports. But also, and it's like one of the mega yacht capitals of the world. And like, I drive by that every day, and now I have tie-ins to those things. But for years, I grew up here. I never thought about the fact that I saw mega yachts. And there's an entire world that I know now. Like, I've worked in that industry. I have friends in that industry, and you're like, oh, that's so interesting. So there's just always something I find fun to write about.
And if anyone is interested in your works or seeing your upcoming works, where would be the best place to go?
You can always go to my website, which is my name, stephanielevine.com. Very easy to spell. No, it's very hard. Or all my books are on sale, usually on Amazon. And if you are on any social media platforms, you can search for me and say hello and find me there.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Stephanie.
Thank you, Jasmine. It's been so great being here. I really appreciate you having me on.
We are back this week with another segment of Healthy, Thriving Families in Two Homes. Stephanie Dobson, of course, is back with us. Stephanie is a lawyer and mediator with Henke Divorce Law and Mediation here in Lloydminster. And Stephanie, last week we started talking about child support. So much to dive into with this. And so one of the things you mentioned last week was calculating extras when it comes to child support. So can you talk about what some of those extras are?
Sure, and I'm just going to give a little reminder in case anyone didn't see last week. So just to remind you, child support is broken into two different sections. So we've got the base support, which is intended for food, clothing, and shelter. And then we've got the extras, and the extras is what we're going to be talking about today. People call them the Section 7 expenses, and that's because it's relating to Section 7 of the child support guidelines. So this section is broken down into categories of expenses, and these are the things that get shared between two parents. So here's the list. Childcare expenses for the primary parent, and these are the kind of expenses that allow a parent to go to work, go to school, or have their own respite for what they need. Health insurance premium, so that's the difference between what you would pay as a single person or as a family plan. It's that difference right in there. That's actually an extra, an amount that's shareable between the two parents under Section 7 of the guidelines. Then there's medical and dental expenses that exceed reimbursement by at least $100 a year. We've got also post-secondary education expenses, which we'll talk about a little bit later in our interview today. And then there's two categories that have the word extraordinary in front of them. So extraordinary expenses relating to primary and secondary school expenses, and extraordinary expenses relating to extracurricular activities.
So how does it work with these extra expenses, Stephanie? Is it always divided 50-50, or does it depend on a number of factors?
Well, of course, as always, it's complicated. So by way of default, the parents will be sharing these extras, these categories of expenses we just went through, on what's called a proportionate basis. And so if you can't agree otherwise, you share this proportionately. So that means that if one parent is earning $70,000 a year and the other parent is earning $30,000 a year, then you share these expenses. One parent pays 70% and the other parent pays 30%. There's some parents that agree to deviate from that, and they decide that they're going to share these on a different basis. That proportionate sharing might come out at 54.07% or something like that. And so parents agree to just sort of round up or round down. But one of the things to remember is that sharing is always the after-tax value of what you're paying. So for example, childcare receipts, where you can write those off or deduct them on your personal income tax return, one of you can anyway, you have to calculate the tax effect or the tax credit that you would be getting for the ability to deduct those. So again, it's all complicated.
There really is a lot to think about, Stephanie. And one of the things we talked about was post-secondary education expenses. Obviously, that's a huge consideration. And then there's things like RESPs as well. So is there a requirement under child support guidelines when it comes to all of those things?
So here's the irony. Post-secondary education expenses, you're absolutely right. They are shareable between parents under the Section 7 of the child support guidelines. Now, there's lots of added complication about how those things get shared, and then if there's a child's portion that gets added into there, that they're responsible for paying some of it. But the interesting thing is that there is no obligation, although there's an obligation by parents to help pay for post-secondary education, there's no obligation to actually save for post-secondary education expenses. And so one of the things to note is that when you're separating, you may already, you may already have some RESPs saved from during the relationship, and that is actually marital property that can get divided between parents. Often doesn't, but can be divided between parents like any other bank account, minus the grants, of course. Having said that, anything that's done post-separation, it's really important to make sure that you either have the same idea of the kinds of contributions that you're going to make to that RESP account, or you set up your own savings, whether it's an RESP or otherwise, to make sure that your contributions will go towards your portion of those post-secondary education expenses.
Stephanie, this is such a crazy category with so much to consider. I want to thank you for speaking with us about this. And if people are looking for more information, because it is really quite complicated, what's the best way to start to get that information?
Sure, you can have a look at our website at hankadivorce.ca or give our office a call, 780-875-2234, and we can see how we can best help you.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie, and we'll chat again next week.
Thanks, Stacey.